In 19th century America, we can't do it like nobody can we have. H. Holmes, the American Ripper and the Donner. Party can eat you alive, but they ain't got nothing on the blue eye. Six Lizzie Borden in the bloody benders, but with the kissing cousins and a woman scorned. It's a crime of passion and illicit infatuation. Murdered with a butcher's keen blade. Yes, America can do murder like nobody can.
Hey y'all, Jamie here with Country Diggers. Today we're going to go into the Bloody Century 2. More tales of murder in 19th century America by Robert Wilhelm. He also does murderbygaslight.com. And today we will be talking about the Blue-Eyed Six. So stay tuned. The Blue-Eyed Six. It was a foolproof plan. 6 men in Lebanon County, Pennsylvania, bought insurance policies on the life of Joseph Rabber, an elderly recluse living in a hut in the Blue Mountains. They were sure Rabber would die soon and end their financial problems, but the premiums proved costly, and the men grew tired of waiting for Rabber to die. In July 1878, they decided to take matters into their own hands. Their plight was common knowledge in Lebanon County, and it was not long before all 6 were arrested for murder. The conspirators had a number of common characteristics. All 6 men were illiterate. All 6 were living in poverty, and all 6 were of low moral character. But one trait captured the public's imagination. All 6 had blue eyes. The date was October 7th, 1878. Location, Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. The victim, Joseph Rabber. Cause of death, drowning. Accused, Israel Brandt, Henry Wise, George Zeckman, Josiah Hummel, Charles Drews, Frank Stitcher. The Blue-Eyed Six. It began with 4 men looking for a way to ease the extreme poverty that had befallen Lebanon County, Pennsylvania in 1878. All but one were married with children to feed. Israel Brandt had 6 children, Henry Wise had 7, George Zeckman had 6, Josiah Hummel had no children, but was having trouble supporting himself as an unskilled laborer. Wise was a coal miner, and Zeckman worked as a farm laborer and a coal miner. Brandt, who had lost one arm in a farm accident, ran an inn in a bad section of St. Joseph Springs, consisting of a bar and 1 bedroom. Their plan was to take out life insurance policies on Joseph Rabber, a recluse 65-year-old man living in an abandoned charcoal burner's hut in the Blue Mountains. The hut had a dirt floor and ceiling too low for a grown man to stand up in. He lived there with Polly Kreiser, referred to as his housekeeper, but common law wife would be more accurate. Rabber did farm labor when he could, but mainly lived on public charity. The 4 men had promised to take care of Rabber, but he would make them beneficiaries of the life insurance policies, and Rabber was pleased to do so. The type of policy they bought was called assessment insurance. also known as graveyard insurance. It was primarily sold to guarantee that the insured would have enough money to be buried when he died, with a little extra for his survivors. The concept of assessment insurance was simple. The insured paid a premium to join a pool, and then when any of the members died, the rest in the pool were assessed a certain amount that was then given to the beneficiaries. For example, if 1,000 people were in the pool and the assessment was $1, a beneficiary would be paid $1,000. Josiah Hummel's policy on Joseph Rabber was worth $2,000. George Zeckman's was worth $2,000. Israel Brandt's was worth $1,000, and Henry Wise's was worth in the neighborhood of $3,000. In practice, assessment insurance was similar to a pyramid scheme, where the member who died first stood to gain the most. As members died, they would have to be replaced to maintain the policy's value. As time went on, living members often chose to opt out of the pool rather than continue paying assessments. Joe Rabber was old, but he was in relatively healthy shape and showed no signs that he would be dying anytime soon. The constant assessments required to stay in the pools were becoming a financial hardship for his insurers. They realized they could not afford to let Joseph Rabber live any longer. They made and abandoned several murder plans, including throwing Rabber from a flatboat into a reservoir and poisoning him with chloroform before admitting they were not able to do the killing themselves. Israel Brandt approached his neighbor, Charles Drews, and offered him $300 to murder Rabber, and promised he would get the same amount from the other co-conspirators. After the job was done, Drews in turn sought help from his son-in-law, Joseph Peters, and Frank Stitcher, a local thief. Peters turned him down, but Stitcher agreed to help for a price. Around dusk on Saturday, December 7th, 1878, Drews went into the tavern at Brandt's Hotel and told the people there that Joe Rabber was dead. That afternoon, he and Stitcher had paid a call on Joseph Rabber and offered him some tobacco if he would accompany them to Kreiser's store. Rabber agreed to go with them. The trip to the store had required crossing Indiantown Creek on a crude bridge made of two 12-inch planks. Drew said Rabber had a dizzy spell partway across, fell into the river, and drowned. The following day, a coroner's jury examined the body and declared the death accidental. The insurance on Joe Rabber's life was common knowledge in Lebanon County, and quite a few people knew of the murder plot as well. No one came forward with information, but an article about the death in the Lebanon Courier concluded with, "It is said that persons in the vicinity hold policies of insurance on Rabber's life for $13,000 upwards. There is unpleasant talk of the probability of his death not being accidental." Well, if you ask me, all them people just had low morals for not coming forward then. But anyway, 2 months later, the Courier ran a story with the headline, "The Death of Joseph Rabber. He is supposed to have been murdered. 6 men arrested, charged with crime." At the prompting of one of the insurance companies, Lebanon County constables questioned Joseph Peters regarding Raber's death. At 4 a.m. on February 5th, 1879, Peters admitted to seeing Drews and Stitcher drown Joe Raber. They had walked across the planks in single file with Stitcher in the lead and Drews in the rear. About halfway across, Stitcher turned around, grabbed Raber by the shoulders, and threw him into the river, then held him under until he drowned. Peters also accused the other 4 men of planning the murder. That morning, Israel Brandt, Henry Wise, Josiah Hummel, George Zeekman, Charles Drew, and Frank Stitcher were arrested for murder. The trial, April 7th, 1879. The trial generated national and even international attention. It was the first time in the history of English and American law that 6 men would be tried together for murder. A few reporters from distant cities came to Lebanon County Courthouse to witness the proceedings. One of them observed that all the defendants had piercing blue eyes. From then on, they were referred to as the Blue-Eyed Six. The trial was presided over by Judges Henderson, Rank, and Light. 58 witnesses testified, many of whom were German immigrants who spoke little or no English and required a translator. Doctors, insurance men, family, and neighbors of the defendants were called. But the outcome of the trial rested on the testimony of Joseph Peters and his wife Lena. They had both seen Drews and Stitcher drown Joe Raber from the second floor window of the Drews house where they were staying. The 6 defendants had 5 attorneys who did all they could to discredit the Peters testimony. They claimed it would be impossible to see the murder through the second-story window, and actually brought the window into court. It had multiple panes, and all were too dirty to see clearly. One pane was partially broken, and rags were stuffed in the hole. The defense had witnesses who testified that Joseph Peters had been drinking all that afternoon and was drunk at the time he allegedly saw the murder. They also brought out the fact that Peters was currently absent without leave from the Army. Then there were the personal connections. Joseph Peters was fully aware of rumors that his wife Lena, Charles Drew's daughter, had been cheating with Frank Stitcher, while Peters was serving with his unit. In the end, none of it mattered. The jury deliberated for 5 hours and then returned a verdict of guilty of all the defendants. Verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Aftermath: all 6 defendants requested a new trial. While awaiting sentence, Henry Wise made a full confession. At the sentencing, Judge Henderson granted George Zeekman a new trial. His involvement in the conspiracy was based solely on testaments made by other defendants, which would have been inadmissible if the statements made, if he had been tried alone. Drews, Stitcher, Hummel, and Brandt were sentenced to hang. Wise would be sentenced later. It was assumed that Wise had cut a deal, confession in exchange for a life sentence. The other 4 convicts then issued their own confessions, placing as much blame as possible on Wise. Ultimately, Wise was sentenced to hang as well. The hangings were postponed until the outcome of George Ziegman's second trial. Ziegman was retired and found not guilty. Although he had participated in insuring Joseph Rabber, the jury determined he had not been party to the conspiracy. He was a known insurance investor and had insured many people in the past without foul play. Drews and Stitcher were hanged on November 14, 1879, the day after Ziegman's verdict was read. Brandt, Hummel, and Wise were hanged on March 13, 1880. Well, hope y'all enjoyed the story of the Blue-Eyed Six. Sorry about my voice. I guess that I'm not quite over my cold. But anyway, hope you enjoyed.